Yes, yes. Lessons, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Here with Paul Willis. I'm Rocky Zapata with the Auburn Hip Hop Congress. We're really happy to be here today. We're kicking off a new series called The Hip Hop Journey. And we're mostly just here to tell you a little bit about it, and we're going to introduce the first video. So without further ado, what's up, Paul? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You're frozen on my end, but if you can hear me, we're all set.
Well, hopefully I'm good on everybody else's.
I can see you moving.
Okay. Natalie says she sees me moving, but she can't turn on the volume in the room.
It's all good. All good.
Yeah, you sound good to me.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on and for partnering on this really dope a series, I guess. I don't know how else to kind of describe it. I'm really excited about the hip hop journey and what it will mean, not just for young people, but for everybody who tunes in.
Word. Yeah, I just want to give people a second to tune in. Let's see. I'm gonna put a couple links up first. Yeah, let us know you guys are watching. If you guys are tuning in, I see four eyes are on us, either on Facebook or YouTube. But you guys can watch on our Facebook Live on the Auburn Hip Hop Congress page, or you can tune over to our YouTube channel and watch it on your phone or TV or whatever. All right, so yeah, we'll get started. I figure this could go for a little while, or we can be a longer conversation. But just kind of want to set it off and introduce everybody to the idea of what we're here to do. Let's see. I was gonna start with the juvenile hall side of things, but I was thinking just like a definition of the program, if you don't mind. I think you wrote something really, really great, Paul.
And I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
So I apologize. But the hip hop journey, it's a conversation series where we're talking with people who, have taken these creative and alternative pathways to success. So we're talking to people who are artists and creatives, entrepreneurs, maybe aspiring politicians, but people who've taken these non-traditional routes to get to where they are. Because our goal is to show how there's not just one way, and I think that hip hop as a culture, its real power lies in our abilities to share our stories and to tell our narratives from our perspectives. I think that there's a tremendous amount of power in that when we can see ourselves through the lives and the stories of others. I think it's information that just impacts us all pretty deeply. So when we first connected, we were, talking about a way to think about virtual programming differently for the young people in the juvenile hall out in Auburn. The Auburn Hip Hop Congress runs a program out there every week. So we were talking just about that. And one of the things that was kind of difficult to do during the pandemic was to get people to physically go in to the juvenile hall because they wouldn't allow it. They had policies and protocols. They couldn't bring in outside guests and visitors, which is I think everybody understands why. So we thought that this interview series where we're having these conversations could be a cool way to bring people into the juvenile hall. But if it was just me asking questions, which is cool, I enjoy that part of the process. We knew that the kids may not be as fully engaged as we would want, and there was an opportunity to do a little bit of a media training and getting the young people who are in the juvenile hall giving them skills to learn about interviewing others, podcasting, and just this process kind of behind the scenes to start that process for them, because that is something that they could jump into right away without anybody's like permission or blessing. And it's a way that their background or working history or lack of a working history because of their time behind bars just won't impact their future, right? As and it won't be as harmful, for their future. I think that kind of hearing from these different community leaders and business leaders from just different industries is a way to hear about just what's possible. And ultimately, that's my mission right now, is to help our young people realize that there aren't a ton of limitations right now for them. And it's kind of hard to see that when you're in the middle of it. But if whatever we could do to help open those doors and open those possibilities up, then that's what we're working to do.
100%. So, and leave a comment in the comment section. Let us know you guys are tuning in. We'd love to hear from you all. We're hoping this can be a conversation. We're going to open it up for questions, of course, to hear more about the program. But once we tell you a little bit about it and give you guys some sneak peeks, we really want to just open it up for conversation and see what kind of ideas we can generate to bring into the juvenile hall. Maybe we talk about some of the guests we can bring in, or, if you're somebody that was in juvenile hall or, in the system as a young person like myself, what are some of the things that you want to pass along? What are some of the words you want shared in there to these young people? Because for like almost the last 4 years, Auburn Hip Hop Congress has had the unique opportunity to be able to go in there. It's unique because we're going into the juvenile hall, and that's big in itself, and we get to introduce them to so many different ideas and people, and just the programs that we have out here, connecting it to the inside. But the other side of our program is really like champions of lived experience. All of us have a story to tell, so we're showing them that every week we go in, whether we're demonstrating a new art form and introducing them to something, or whether we're just introducing ourselves and sharing the experiences we've been through, what led us to where we are today. There's a lot of different versions of success out there, and we like to show them we look different. We what I mean? We don't fit that status quo of yesterday's success mold. So we try to show them it looks a lot of different ways. You know what I mean? We get to go in every week with a new guest and really show them people living their dream, people that come from the struggle, people that come from the systems. And, it doesn't have to be someone from the system, but what we find often, especially in hip hop and these interviews, is that a lot of us have a connection to those streets. A lot of us, whether it's ourselves or our families, are directly connected to some of the struggles, if not a lot of the struggles. But,
question that I had for you, Rocky, that I thought might be cool to kind of talk about while people are kind of gathering their comments and their questions. As somebody who grew up in the system, and you're working in the juvenile hall that you were in, can you share a little bit about just what the experience of going back, what that kind of means to you now, and some of the stories of others that you might have heard about who've been incarcerated and are now giving back? Could you share a little bit about just what that experience has been like for you? Because I think oftentimes, you're kind of interviewing or bringing in other people into your work, but people don't get to hear about the impact for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'd love to share a little something. Let's see. I grew up from probably 13 to 18 in and out of the juvenile hall. I'm one of those stories that transitioned into jails and institutions as I grew older. And, I was definitely a product of the system of the 90s and the early thousands. You know what I mean? We were filling up jails really fast. And I can tell you right now, when we built that new juvenile hall that we get to go into every week to see them, that place was full back in the early thousands, and they were anticipating it staying that way for a long time. So, when I was growing up, it was really that prison to pipeline, or that school to prison pipeline. You know what I mean? And it's not that it's gone, or it just, some things are getting better and some things are finally getting looked at head on. You know what I mean? And I think our program is a testament of that. But just kind of speaking to what you were asking, it's a trip, especially like that first year I got to go in. That first time I got to go in, it was a real trip. Like, walking through those doors and hearing that door close behind me. You know what I mean? Just being looked at in a different light and being given the opportunity and trusted to go speak to these young people after, I'm in there with some of the guards that I was in there with when I was younger. You know what I mean? And that's a trip. That
Yeah,
was 15 years ago. You know what I mean?
yeah.
20 years ago, 25 years ago. Dang, did I just age myself?
That's all right.
Nah. There's so many things to be said, like I just get a lot out of it every week being able to go in. And at first, we got our foot in the door by all the programs and festivals and things that we do in the community with young people. And they wanted us to bring some of that in there. And then as that first like 6 weeks ended that we planned on going in, we just asked, can we keep coming in? There was no funding or, there was none of that. And we just saw the opportunity for what it was. And you know what I mean? We seized it. We were basically like, we have all these ideas we would love to bring in here now that we've seen the rain, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, and after that we stayed going in there for like 6 months before we actually got called into a meeting, and now we're a funded program with Placer County and with the probation to be able to bring our programs in every week throughout the year and be able to pay a different guest to come speak, and that's really special on a number of levels.
Hmm.
But yeah, kind of circling back because I don't want to get away from it, the
No,
feeling
no,
of
no.
going.
But yeah, that's an important part of the story, though, right? Because for me, I'm not somebody who's ever been incarcerated, right? I have friends who are. There are people from my community I grew up with, I love dearly, uh, who've experienced that or got caught up in the streets and a whole list of things. But I was the nerd. I was the bookworm growing up. I love to rap. I love to play basketball and all of that. And that's a lot of that in school kind of kept me out of trouble. But there are moments in my life where I could have easily had ended up where a lot of these young folks are. Um, and a lot of my friends who've been in those positions, for me, I don't see myself as different than any of them, right? There's nothing different, there's nothing special. I had different opportunities, I was protected in some ways, and I just got lucky in a few other ways, right? So for me to go in, and to partner with you and the Auburn Hip Hop Congress to provide this sort of programming, I think is part of what makes this really kind of different and unique for most people, um, because you have somebody who's lived it, you have somebody who hasn't lived it, but that doesn't mean that you can't connect with the young people who are there. So our guests, who some have had similar experiences, or they work with people who've had similar experiences as our young folks. But some of our guests haven't had, any experience being locked up or incarcerated or anything like that. So, for us, it's about that journey. It's about the pathway that they took to find whatever success means to them. Whether they're like well-known touring artists, or signed artists or independent, or they might be a hip hop educator, or a global ambassador for the culture. These are folks who are coming in because they want to connect, and they want to be able to give back and share these stories, because it's through that exchange that really shifts people's perspectives on life and what's possible and what can be imagined. So I think that that's like an important part of the story too. And I know that we want to give people a preview of kind of what some of these conversations look like. I know we also want to answer people's questions, but who we are, I think, really is one of the differentiators for this particular program. And then the fact that we are asking questions that come from the young people who are incarcerated right now. it's their questions that show up in these interviews, the things that they are interested in, the things that they want to know about, and we get to help, be that bridge and be that link between them and some of our guests. It's a huge honor and a privilege to be able to serve in this way.
100%. I couldn't have said it better. You know, and kind of piggybacking on that, for me, it's just an ongoing, one of the most meaningful and fulfilling things I get to do every week, or get to do as part of my life today. I never thought that I'd be able to go back into the juvenile hall I grew up in. You know what I mean? And I get to tell that to these kids like every week. Maybe for the first time, they see themselves like, wait, you were sitting here? You know what I mean? Or maybe they hear about Hobo Johnson's story and they're like, wait, he was sitting right here? You know what I mean? And like just the possibilities that it helps open up. I remember how small I thought before, how small my world was, and that's something that I think we get to do, is really just open their world up, show them different points of view, show them different people from different hoods, you know what I mean? Like to show them that people have overcome a number of ways and that we all struggle, and that there's power in our stories. I think that's been one of the greatest gifts, and every
Yeah,
week for
absolutely.
me, like I get to bring somebody else in and I get to hear your guys' stories. You know what I mean? For the past 4 years. And I'll say, we've been doing this in the juvenile hall for nearly 4 years now. And then like Paul was saying, we had to take like a 6-month hiatus after when the pandemic hit, and that really threw us off. So when we went back in there, it was all virtual and we had to figure out our feet. We had to figure out, where we were and rebuild a relationship. Because like
Yeah,
Paul was,
because the
you
students,
know,
the young people who were in there, right? They weren't necessarily the same young people,
exactly.
who were there at the start of that 6-month hiatus.
Yep. We had such a strong connection with the kids, prior to that hiatus. And it's been interesting virtually rebuilding a relationship with them and having that kind of relationship. Because, like you said, we're different. You know what I mean? We don't come in as an authority figure, as a licensed counselor necessarily. That's not the hat we're wearing. We come in as everyday people that are out here. When they get out, if they want support, if they, we let them know every week that we're a group of real people doing real things. And everybody that you meet through us, you can connect with in real time out here in the real world because we care. We're not going to bring somebody in there just because they're a star. We're not going to bring somebody in
Right.
there just because they want to come in. You know what I mean? We're going to really think about it and what's beneficial to these young people. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. You
Um,
literally give out your phone number to these young folks and say, when you get out and you are looking for positive and productive things that aren't going to land you back in there, give me a call. And
yep,
we'll see, whatever resource we have, whoever's in our network, they can provide an internship, a job opportunity, or even just a conversation, where they're sharing advice, in mentorship. I think that's powerful, man. That's huge.
it's beautiful, Paul. And I'm really glad you came to us when you did with this idea, or when we asked you to come, teach a workshop. You hit us with this beautiful idea, and it just fit. The timing and everything just fit so perfect. You know what I mean? Because we were at that stage where we were rebuilding a connection with the kids, but we couldn't keep doing it that same format every week. It just wasn't gonna be, you know what I mean? Like everything that we know it can be, everything that we had prior to the pandemic. You know what I mean? We had to find a way to rebuild with these kids and get them engaged and involved, and pull the ones from the back to the front if we can, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I really think that this idea is building a bridge in that way, and we're able to, and not only a bridge there, but for the first time ever, people are going to be able to see our programs on the outside. People are going to get to
Right.
hear these stories. They're going to get to see some of the guests that these kids are getting to meet, and I think that's beautiful too, because we have such an extensive network, a diverse, beautiful, colorful cultural network, and it's just it's nice to be able to bring everybody into something. I'm hoping
Yeah.
we can get our viewership up and people find enough interest to be able to watch it, even when we're not live streaming, but they can just go to our
Yeah.
YouTube and check it out. Same with the
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. And I think about how it impacts the young people who are in there. And I really want the folks at home to just consider what this lockdown has been for you, right? Um, but you might have an apartment, you might have a big house, you might have whatever. But imagine just being like locked away in your room without the comforts of home, without your TV, without your, video game, without your cell phone, without, any of those amenities, right? And if you were locked away in just your room, and once a week, you get people from the outside coming in, and they're bringing in people who look like you, or maybe who don't look like you but think like you, share and similar career passions and goals. It's huge, for just their development, because these are still like teenagers, and young adults, like they're young men and women who are there, who are looking for that hope. They're looking for inspiration, and sometimes I think it's like just the most positive kind of distraction, right? It keeps your mind going week to week to think about what are my goals. I heard this person say this about being an artist. Is that something that I want to try to do? Maybe I might be inspired to write a poem or a song. But maybe I'm just thinking about what questions I'm going to ask the next guest, because I'm getting out soon. We had DJ Lady Shar come in and do some live DJing, and talked about how she was able to make a career as a DJ here in the city, and that really surprised a lot of the kids. But in particularly, a lot of the young women who were there were like, whoa, like this is something that I never thought I would be able to do. But it's interesting to hear how this person was able to build up a business from the ground up. And maybe that's something I can do. Maybe I'm not a DJ, but the way that they started, DJing in their room, getting better and better, and then taking it out, taking their talents and giving their gifts to the world. I think that those kinds of stories and connections really impacts the young people in ways that we can't even begin to describe and to imagine. And while we can't bring cameras into the juvenile hall, because of policies and things like that, we hope that the conversations that people get to see through these videos will be a glimpse into what that experience is like for the young people when they're interacting with folks face to face.
Word. I don't know if y'all can hear my cat in the back, but this is live stream TV.
It's all good. It's all good. I don't know, Rocky, do we have any questions? Any comments that came up?
We got some loved ones in the comments. I'll just quickly scroll through them again. What's up, Gavin? Yo, radio. Yeah, my grandson Malcolm says hi. What's up, Vanessa? What's up? Andrew. What's up, Andrew? The great Joy Hunt. It's been an inspiration, bro.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was actually my warm-up question the other day was what's your number?
Yep.
And for those people who may not know about the Great Joy Hunt, that's a virtual program that Andrew Defy does, and he opens the show with what's your number? How are you feeling today? Like, how joyful do you feel? Maybe that's a scale of 1 to 10. But if you're feeling like 1,000, then that's your number, for the day. And we actually did that with some of the young people in the juvenile hall, and we were able to get some really cool responses.
Yeah, that was dope. Shout out to Andrew, and of course, we gave credit where credit was due. I think that was like an unofficial intro, because I'm sure we'll be hitting you up along this journey at some point. Word.
Cool.
So there's no questions yet, but I encourage anybody that's watching or jumping on, or if you're just jumping on, if you have any questions about the hip hop journey, which is a live interview series that we're going to be kicking off this week, we're just here to tell you a little bit about it. It's also part of our program in the juvenile hall. So a lot of the interviews we'll be doing are based around questions the kids in juvenile hall have, and we get to bring them in and show these interviews, and then sometimes bring the guests in as well. So if you guys have any questions or comments or anything, please feel free to share. And there's so many things. Like when you're talking, it just reminds me, and I can go off on branches, I know. So
please do.
support branches at least. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
you were talking about like just some of the people we get to bring in there. You know what I mean? And some of their stories. And like there's so many things we get to touch on just by us sharing our stories from a non like judgmental or not trying to preach them or give them like the tools that they need to use, but just tools that worked for us.
Yeah.
Things that happened or worked in our lives that allowed us to kind of level up. You know, um,
Yeah.
but some of those stories and some of those people we get to bring in are just so inspiring. And it really is revolutionary for the system because like just connecting it to the past. When I was growing up, like we didn't have no music. We didn't get to hear no beats. We didn't get to hear no spit our verses. We didn't get to, you know what I mean? We didn't get creatively engaged in that way whatsoever. I had one teacher, shout out to Patty Ward, who would make a point to try to put meaningful things into the curriculum, like try to dose us up with some real, with some real humanity. And I just remember like walking into her room at the old juvenile hall the first time, and that place was like all mold and cement and broken down. You know what I mean? And like
Hmm.
the only room in the entire place that was all plants. She had plants hanging from every wall, and it just felt like you were entering a different world. You know what I mean? I remember how much that meant growing up, and I like to believe that we get to offer a little bit of that too. Just take them
Hmm.
somewhere else for a little bit, help them see things differently where they're at. But
Yeah.
circling back, like it really wasn't the same back then. It was so much more authoritarian. It was so much more like numbers. I was a number. We were numbers. There was people that tried to come through and make a connection, but a lot of them were through the system. And when you're younger and you've been given every counselor and every probation officer and every adult that you can be given, a lot of times you build your walls up so high that like you've already been let down enough. So like every week we get to walk in under those pretenses. We already know. And even if I can't help, if your walls ain't trying to lower for this one, that's okay. We can all raise up a little
Hmm.
bit, try to see each other where we're at,
Hmm.
you know, and we get to show them that. But yeah, I mean,
Right.
it's so different from when I was growing up. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah,
a
and
I just
you
wanna,
you you talked about some of the other changes that you've been able to see. I know that some of the guards have had some like interesting growth as well. I think that some of our conversations that we have, I think that helps the guards like see the kids in a different light, because we're able to connect with them in a different type of way that our kids who open up and they're kind of fully human, and themselves authentically with us. The guards get to see them differently.
word, and especially when we were going in every week. I think the I think the guards all really got to see the connection that were, established, real natural, just relationships where there was a level of trust and understanding. You know what I mean? And we were able to talk about things. We weren't coming at them to try to pull information about their families or like
Mhm.
their stories or anything too personal, but we're willing to share that, like I grew up without a father. A lot of the people that I get to introduce grew up without a father. You know what I
Same
mean?
thing, yeah.
And that's something when we raise our hands in the room, sometimes it's most the kids. You know what I mean? And that's really something to think about too. But we get into some of those conversations in like a really natural way that the kids don't often get. They either get talked
Yeah.
to or talked at. I like to think that there's a lot of good people that are all evolving and that are programming to fit better too. But historically, there's been a huge disconnect between the kids and the type of services that are available. And that's
Yeah.
another thing we get to do is act as a bridge for that. We get to show them there's people out here that don't have any ulterior motives besides seeing you succeed. You know what I mean? And they might be part of these organizations or these systems or not at all. You know what I mean? But these are
Hmm.
real people out here that have been through things. And I think that's another thing to speak to is like we're at a kind of monumental time in history, for the past however many years. Um, and especially this last year. But like we're at a pretty monumental time in history where lived experience is valued. I remember, I think it was I'll say it's probably like 8 years ago now. I was talking to a rehab director, and she was just telling me that some of her challenges and what she's seen over the years. And she was like, when I was a kid and in rehabs, early 2000s, you know what I mean? they told the staff at group homes and rehabs that they couldn't share more than 10 or 15% of their story. Couldn't share it. It would harm the kids. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you right now, the number is closer to like 85% of your story. You leave out the shit that doesn't help. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it makes
Right.
so much more sense, but it allows us to build real relationships and not base them off of like some counselor type of relationship, which isn't, which is its own relationship. But like we're able
Yeah.
to build it that way. And because of that, like I think we're really able to get through to some of them. Some of the kids we've been able to affect in there, are the kids that they don't listen to anybody else, or they've already, either let down the world or the world's let down them. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
the way that they don't get responded to the way that we do, and
Hmm.
I watched such the most amazing growth, you know, much less
Yeah.
writing, just being a part
Right.
of hip hop and bringing that in every week and giving them an outlet to be able to write and share their stories and encouraging that where it's not all just on that street stuff, you know what I mean? Like, but really
Hmm.
applying their real stories to it, writing their own. Like that's been powerful too. Some of them are just such amazing writers, and we get to share that and or get to see that. But also, like for a lot of them, for the first time, we get to acknowledge that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So many kids are just so brilliant, but their area of brilliance isn't recognized in the regular school system or in the settings that they've been in, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yes. All the way. All the way. And it's wild because I think back to this one conversation that we had, and I was sharing a little bit about, I think, my album that just came out, and kind of what family was like, and learning how to forgive and reconcile, and you know it came up where we were talking about just like anger and hurt, and like where we place that, and one of the young men who was in the program was able to point out how, like, he places anger on other people like this, and he's seen his peers put on guards here, or this adult or that adult, or you know and it led to this like really interesting realization and conversation around, one, like, they're very observant and astute and emotionally intelligent, and sometimes that never gets talked about. But two, when you recognize some of that stuff, if there's no one who can help coach you or mentor you or guide you through your understanding of that, then whatever conclusions you come to on your own, that's just like what it is. Like, whether or not you think placing your own kind of hurt or anger on somebody else is okay. You know what I mean? Like that was a conclusion that some of them had come to, that was like an okay thing to do. um and it made me realize, like, oh, like there's a lot that needs, a lot more information to be shared around trauma, around pain, around addiction. And I remember just like looking over my bookshelf, and I saw this, Khalil Gibran, the prophet, and there's a chapter in there that's, on pain. And I remember kind of telling them that, like, people write about this stuff, like the same thoughts that you have. There are philosophers who shared their thinking around this stuff. There are people who are talking about it, who are writing about it, who are thinking about it. Like, you're not alone in your ideas. And I think that really kind of opened up some eyes in the room when we were having that conversation. Impact of the work is incredible, and it's really profound. I think that if folks weren't aware that this kind of stuff was happening before, that I invite them to learn more, to watch these conversations, to see like where they go and how they might affect our young people. I invite folks to call Rocky, Natalie, learn how you can support this kind of program and programs like it, um, because it needs and deserves greater support. So,
Right.
you know, just because it's funded in part by the county doesn't mean that other people can't get behind it. I think that there's tremendous opportunity if you're a business leader, if you're a corporation, or if you're just a community activist or somebody who just cares and wants to support young people. I think that there's a lot of opportunity to kind of get involved to continue to support the mission.
Absolutely. Especially, we're talking about Auburn and Sac, or between Auburn and Sac. So many of the kids from our juvenile hall are, also in Sacramento. So don't feel like you're left out from being able to support these young people. I've been talking for a while, or thinking for a while about, what more can we do for them when they get out. And there's so many ways we can go with this conversation. And I'd love to keep it open to that if people have ideas. You know what I mean? But one thing I was thinking was just more for them to get out to. We can tell them to go do all these things, but like if they don't have access, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like for the longest time before the pandemic, we were trying to work. We don't have a local studio that we can make free or accessible to kids. You know what I mean? And it's safe and all that good stuff. So we were talking about that. We were in talks just before the pandemic hit, and we're still talking about it, turning a building here, one of the rooms of one of these buildings into a studio for kids, and connecting it to the juvenile hall program. But like those kind of
Mm-hmm.
ideas come naturally because these kids are asking for this kind of support, kind of opportunities. And when I think about it, there's so many other things that I would love to be able to help them have access to, or earn access to, because nothing's free. You know what I mean? They already have all this community service and all these things. So why can't we connect that same community service to meaningful things? Why can't we honor them for that? Give them studio time, or gym time, or lessons of some sort. You know what I mean? So there's so many
Mm-hmm.
ways that people support. Of course, we got to be as safe as we can, and always think in terms of like the kids' best interests. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
these kids are getting back out on the streets and going back to what they know as soon as they run out of ideas, as soon as one thing doesn't pull through for them as quickly as they would like, it's back to the streets, or it's back to the, whatever it was. And like, I know that because that was me, you know what I mean? And it's like, what can we do in those first few days that they get out? If they choose to call, I always tell them, I'm willing to show up if you're willing to show up. So I'll show up for you as much as you're willing to show up for you. That means, that call out, that accountability of some sort, that you're wanting to do well. I can't define success, you know what I mean? But like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell them what success needs to look like for them, but I can support them. I can offer them, support they don't have when they get out. We can, and as a
Right.
community, we can introduce them to that so much sooner. I was
Right.
24 getting out of the system, my last
Yeah.
time in the system. And like, um, my only familiarity with the word community was community service. It was a punishment.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And like, because of that, I never even went further into understanding what the word was, what the word community meant, much less the idea. You know what I mean? And as you know, we're all about our communities now. And I was introduced to the idea of community through hip hop. You know what I mean? And that's the beautiful thing too, is it's like, we get to introduce them to a culture that many of us are connected to. We're connected to the genre. We're connected through the music, or through what we like. You know what I mean? Our
Yep.
interest. But like,
Mm-hmm.
it gives us a bridge to be able to relate and work in new ways. To give them a platform, give them a way to share their stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like we'll listen to the same music, we'll even go to the same shows and never talk with each other sometimes, and I think about some of the other experiences that I've helped to kind of curate throughout the years, like hip hop basketball, where it's like, yo, like you love hip hop, awesome. You're an artist, that's great. Let's get out on the court. Let's run a couple games because I never get to talk to you after the concert. You know what I
Right?
mean? But if you got a couple hours on a Saturday, let's run up and down. Shoot some hoops, run some 5-on-5. Let's do something. Hip hop chess, the same way. There are a lot of people who love to play chess who also love hip hop music. Big fans of Wu Tang and the whole nine. So it's dope to kind of bring people together in spaces that aren't kind of traditional or typical hip hop spaces, right? And to build that community in that way, I think that we all kind of recognize that the music is one of those things that brings us together, but there are other things that can bring us together, y'all. And for our young people who are, getting out of the system and they're looking for these opportunities, I think that there's space, for folks to kind of take one of these young folks under their wing, provide them with an internship, give them some of that guidance, that mentorship, invite them to just different events and opportunities so that they can see, really, really what that word community means. So, I think
Absolutely.
that's a fantastic point that you brought up, Rocky. Are we going to be able to show them any of the clips from the show?
I could. I know that I could put a link up too because I just made public
Oh, that's dope.
first interview, so we could even show a part of it in a little bit. But I wanted to look at a few of these questions too, or not questions, but comments.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
So I don't know who's watching with us still, but Donnell, or I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Thank you for rocking with us. The bridge is essential and brings much value to their futures. 100%.
Mm.
You know,
Is
and
that Donnell McGarry?
O'Brien?
No.
Okay.
That's a different person. Sorry. I thought that might have been DiBiase in the comments.
Oh dang, okay.
It's all good.
Have
Good.
to get him on the journey though, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to.
Word. You got Damian Saunders. Good platform. Folks have to get involved. Shout out for all the work you're doing as well, bro. It's also important for us that it is free for the young people.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to be said there. You know what I mean? Like we do get to talk about poverty and that definitely comes up. But again, when I talk about access, that's what I mean. We can't expect these kids to already have something, most of them don't, and
Right.
when we talk about access, it's already arts and stuff is hard to come by. We're fortunate in our smaller circles and communities. We're immersed in it, you know what I mean? But we constantly
Mm-hmm.
find these young people don't have a path or an opportunity, and they're not supported in it, so any way that we can. And not just arts. Again, we're talking about like gyms, and how many of these kids could benefit from a boxing lesson and some discipline around that, and they'd be willing to show up, maybe even clean the mats afterwards or do whatever's needed. You know what I mean? We can really build partnerships for these young people. Hey, Charlotte. Yeah. Word. Yeah, and we've started to say a few things, but I also, along what Paul was starting to say, is I do want to shout out Placer County probation and some of the growth I've seen, some of the work that I've seen. I grew up in the juvenile hall, and I only had negative things to say. You know what I mean? And that's being really light, and I can go into like how big a chip on my shoulder I had, and how much harm was done, you know what I mean? Because of the way the systems were structured before, in my opinion. You know what I mean? But I also have to acknowledge how amazing some of the guards are with the young people. I remember somebody getting slammed every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember like it was expected, that you didn't step out of line, literally, or metaphorically.
Mm-hmm.
But the level of patience I see today comparably is monumental, and I just whatever it is within like the growth and the trainings, but more the individuals, because just being real, we see both.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to shine a light and be really excited about the ones that I see going above and beyond. There's some of the guards and sound like me and Natalie when we're talking afterwards. You know what I mean? They have backgrounds where they organize and they work with young people outside of the juvenile hall, not as probation. You know what I mean? Some of them are doing more for these kids than anybody else. Do you know what I mean? They're literally, while they're in there, connecting them directly with services and jobs and things like that. And I got to shout them out for that. It's not like all the kids are receptive to it either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's
So,
it's got to give credit where it's due.
and some of them find that role, within the
Yeah.
system where they can actually help the most, where they can. You know what I mean? And that it's not an easy task. The system hasn't been set up in a way where people can advocate or provide support that works outside the lines. And I just want to
Yeah.
shout out where I do see it, and for all the others and for everyone else and them too. Like, I like to believe every week we get to go in and teach them too.
Mm-hmm.
We get to either show them a new idea or art form, just like the kids, or we get to show them how we build with these kids. We
Mm-hmm.
get to show them a relationship that forms through the way that we communicate with them, through the opportunities we try to offer them, and just the way we approach it. I really think that they can benefit from it, and a lot of them do. And I appreciate them for even stepping back and just letting us do our thing, because sometimes we have to be really real to get that kind of relationship.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
But yeah, just
Any
yeah,
any other questions? Because I still can't see them. I'm sorry. But are there any other kind of questions or comments that are there?
looks like all the same ones.
Okay.
So everybody feel free to comment or ask any questions or offer any suggestions or insight you might have too.
Yeah.
This is an open conversation.
Mhm. I think people also might be curious about like what the show like kind of looks like,
Hmm.
operates, and it's literally like me in my living room. Just talking with guests. I know the last couple of weeks we were able to bring people in to the actual juvenile hall, virtually speaking, and they were able to connect with the young people directly, which was super dope. Um, so yeah, but people will be able to get to see this first one. Episode one. Our first guest was Chinua Rhodes. He's now a school board member, Chinua Rhodes. But at the time, he was still campaigning and running. So this was before the election when we did this particular interview. And, we were aiming for maybe like a 30, 40-minute conversation. It ended up speaking for like a whole hour. It was, if you know Chinua and you know myself, then you know that we can, once we get going, we're going. Um, but he had a lot of really, I think, amazing things to share about his journey, and about how he, started businesses and some of the lessons that he learned, not just in the process of becoming an entrepreneur, but even just the process of being a dad, right? So he shared a lot of stuff, a lot of great advice for some of our young folks, and was really excited to do that particular interview to kind of kick us off. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
don't
was
know. Maybe it'll be a
uh,
good time to show some of it, Rocky.
yeah, and it was a super dope interview. I wish I would have timestamped some of the key parts, but like the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, the whole interview was great. And one thing we
Mm-hmm.
realized from that first interview was, well, one, it was really long. And I think that's okay. But when we tried to show it as an hour-long interview to the kids, we had to
It's
break
too
it up
much.
into multiple parts, and it was too much. So we've been kind of learning as we go too and adapting it. And now, we've decided to make it a partnership with our Thursday program as well, so you guys can be a part of it. Because I think what we realized was, like, some of these conversations are just interesting. You know what I mean? When you talk about Chinua, like, it was really fascinating hearing about, like, how he started and the crossovers of his lives, from being somebody that worked in the schools, from being a musician, from transitioning into real estate and really making some big moves in the community. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I won't share too much, but it was a really powerful interview. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I feel like that's part of the reason that we're doing this on Thursdays now. For every second Thursday, we're going to do the hip hop journey. So you guys can tune in then, and you can also just check out our YouTube channel and see all the videos that we're putting up. But we
Mm-hmm.
figure there's a lot to gain for everybody to be able to hear these stories, and it connects us. And our, we have a really dope network, a national, international hip hop. Community, culture, education, you know what I mean? Like there's so many bridges that we get to kind of show everybody now, and I'm just so excited about that, man. I'm excited about this journey, Paul.
Yeah, no,
Hey,
it's dope. It's dope. And some of the other guests, I guess this isn't really like giving too much away, but just so that people like know what to expect. Um, you know, when we talk about like really reaching out to our network, we really mean it. It's not just local folks. Like Chinua, he's been able to impact, not just South Sacramento, but the city of Sacramento, in different parts of our region. But our second interview was with an artist from Brooklyn, whose name is Radamiz. And folks who know about Radamiz, he was signed to Payday Records, um, and opened for Nas at Summer Jam, and did a whole bunch of stuff. Team Backpack, dope visuals that are out, whole nine. Kevin Durant shouted out Radamiz as one of the best hip hop artists to come out of Brooklyn, which is huge. And Radamiz was a guest on our show, um, and it was dope. And the kids' questions for him about the pros and cons of being a signed artist, and what makes you different from other artists who tried to be in your position and failed, and just like really kind of really sharp questions that got him to really open up. uh we try to tell Radamiz, hey, we want to keep this interview closer to like 30 minutes, and that ended up being a whole other hour long interview. That we worked to kind of break it down and chop it up a little bit, but Radamiz wanted to throw the time limit out the window and was just like, the work that y'all are doing, it's so meaningful. The next time I'm out there on the West Coast, let me know how I can get involved and what I can do. It was dope to have somebody like that who, has a bit of that national attention, and a lot of attention really in New York. Come through and kind of share his story with some of the students. It's just powerful stuff to see where people
yeah,
are coming from.
yeah, and it's just super dope to connect with them on this level, especially when we tell them that these questions come from the kids in juvenile hall, and that they may
Mm-hmm.
be able to come to and be able to talk to these kids afterwards, but these questions were formed by them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that's monumental, and we usually end up having a side conversation just about that. You know what I mean? And for a lot of these artists, and same goes for when we were bringing an artist every week. You know what I mean? In person, it's like, do you know how much this means to each of us, especially the first time we get to walk into that space, into those spaces? You know what I mean? The first time we get to be in front of these young people in this setting, it's
Mm-hmm.
intimidating. Do you know how many like hour-long conversations I've had afterwards with artists because of just what it meant to them or to us? You know what I mean? Like it's a really beautiful thing.
It's
Um,
huge.
and
It's
there's
huge.
so many of us, you know, don't recognize the parts of our story until we get into those spaces that are going to be the most beneficial to these young people or that relate the most. You know what I mean? But I think every
Mm-hmm.
one of us naturally falls into kind of a groove in there where it's just like we get to have a really natural, organic conversation about our own lives and the things that we've been through. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always
Yeah.
fascinating hearing the artist take on that, because a lot of times, like if you were to interview Radamiz or another artist, it would be strictly on an artist level. And while there were so many questions about being an artist, it was still like connecting it to the kids in the juvenile hall, and connecting our stories to the things that are meaningful or that matter, that can inspire others. You know,
Yeah. Absolutely.
um, we got one comment from Natalie. I'll put it up. It's very sweet.
So.
From an insider view, another amazing thing to watch is how Rocky and Paul have been able to connect with these youth through virtual platforms. They're really building with the young people, and youth are engaged. That means a lot. That means
That's
a lot.
huge.
Anybody that teaches or does live streaming or anything on Zoom or any of these platforms, you already know. It can be
Yeah.
really interesting. And on top of it, going into the juvenile hall, these aren't the kids that are acclimated to leaning forward and showing that they're interested or that they care always. It's not that we don't get that a lot. It's that these aren't the young people that genuinely show that demeanor or that engagement. You know what I mean? A lot of times
Hmm.
they got their walls up, or we're lucky if they're not the ones trying to get a laugh or something like that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But what we
Yeah,
found
but
is
they've shown I think just a tremendous amount of respect.
exactly, yeah.
Um, and again, I encourage people to just really think about what that experience is like for them. Not just like in our program, but just what it's like to be in a juvenile hall, where you're cut off from so many things, right? I think that they appreciate the time that they spend with us, um, because it's also one of the few points of like outside real world interactions. So the fact that we can pack it in with like meaningful content that's like actually going to be useful for them when they get out, is another like huge bonus. So, again, I think that they like engage in a different kind of way, and they're honest with us. Like if something's not working, they tell us. Like,
Right?
you
Gotta
know,
that.
when they need a break, when they don't understand something, they got a question, or even if it's like a technical thing, like, hey, we couldn't hear anything that you said. Like, they give us that direct feedback. We're able to kind of learn and adjust as we go. And that part, I think it's, you know, as much as we'd like to think that it's impacting them, in a really deep, meaningful way. It's also like impacting us and making us better, by leaps and bounds in our ability to be able to share meaningful content during this crazy, crazy pandemic time. So,
Well, hats off to you, Paul. You've really done a beautiful job with this, and I'm excited to kind of unveil some of this for everybody else too, to get to see the
yeah.
interviews in already. Uh, so far, Paul's gotten 3 interviews in already.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm. And done four. We've done four, and we're getting ready to hit up our fifth. But our fourth one was done in person, so we didn't have a video recording of that conversation. But Lady Shar did say that she'd be down to do the interview. So,
yeah, and I think it'd be
we
good
might be
just to
able to have that
the world.
conversation separate.
Yep. Yeah, so that's the catch 22. We've been giving the kids. So Paul kind of mentioned there's a little media experience involved with this program, and that's a combination of the work that we do outside of the juvenile hall, and then also just kind of being on our feet, recognizing where things were working and where things could be better. You know what I mean? And I think we decided that we really wanted to put the interviewer hat onto the kids. And for the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we've gotten the opportunity to give these young people some training and like communications and interviewing and building questions and things like that, and building
Hmm.
interesting conversations, which as anybody that does this knows is so good for anybody, for any of us that take the time to think these things through. You know what I mean? They build us into stronger communicators and people that are able to think on our feet in multiple scenarios. You know what I mean? So we get to offer this to the kids now after they've watched us do a series of interviews. Now these young people are getting to not to come up with the questions, but be able to have the guests come in and get interviewed by them as well. The only
Hmm.
catch is you guys won't be able to see those ones because we can't bring cameras and record those interviews. But
Hmm.
that those are happening as well, and there's something really special that's going on there. We're getting to see like the kids that get in trouble for talking or side talking or this, that, or the other a lot. They get an opportunity to shine. You know what I mean? Those are the ones that tend to
Hmm.
be the first to volunteer to ask the questions. You know what I mean? Or to prepare
Yeah.
them to take it serious. You'd be
Hmm.
amazed. You know what I mean? It's just like Natalie always says about bringing a kid to the front of the class or having them with you the whole day. If they're causing that much problems, you don't stick them at the back of the class. You know what I mean? You keep them with you and you engage them. Same kind
Absolutely.
of concept, But these are the young people that easily get in trouble or fall through the cracks most of the time, and they're getting a chance to shine. And I get to do this with kids in Growing Peace Camp too, from middle school age, and it's beautiful watching how uh, you know getting the opportunity to interview somebody and take it serious and get some training around that gets them
Mm-hmm.
to be stronger communicators and to build their confidence up. I swear I get to work with some of them for like 3 years in a row, and I get to see like how much it changes from one year to the next. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. They're not just excited about it because it's fun, you know what I mean? But they're learning skills that I didn't even begin to understand till college. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Nonverbal
Yeah.
communication, just the way that we think about building a conversation and sharing in a conversation, facilitating. Like those things are real skills that can benefit you in the real world. And,
Right.
a lot of times we get them started and then we tell them that. You know what I mean? These you're showing that you have a great skill in this, so you would be great at this, or we'd love to have you come help with it. You know, and those are the kind of things that I think bring young people into a community or the idea of a community before
Mm-hmm.
it's all the way there. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually just had a conversation with Clay Nutting, who, he owns a couple restaurants, kind of here in town, and he's been a big supporter of kind of arts and a whole bunch of local artists. But he was telling me, um, actually he recommended a guest for the show, and he was talking about how, um, just in the food industry, there are a lot of folks who, you know, uh, after they're incarcerated, it's like their first opportunity, is working at a restaurant and kind of learning about food and cooking and working in that environment, in that setting. And he said, like, there might be an opportunity to connect with a local chef or a local you know uh, person who's in that particular industry, to kind of talk about different career pathways and how to take advantage of those opportunities in those spaces to really build a career for yourself. And I thought it was interesting. So I encourage people to, again, continue to get involved, reach out to myself, reach out to Rocky, reach out to Natalie about whether it's connections, potential guests. If you want to be a guest, let us know so we can connect you with our young people for real, because everybody's got a story. Everybody kind of defines success in their own way, and we can all learn from that human experience. So, you
Yep.
know,
And I'll
go
tell you,
over to the Auburn Hip Hop Congress YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find episode one. And then, I think that we're rolling these out like week to week. Is that what we said, Rocky?
yeah, I think give it a few days or a week in between each one since we have three to
Mm-hmm.
start with. And then after that, you guys can tune in every second Thursday and we'll have something to premiere or we'll be talking live like this for the hip hop journey. Yeah, and we'll do a clip tonight, or we'll probably end with a clip. Um,
Cool.
shoot, I forgot what I was going to say though. But but yeah, there's also opportunities for. So as you were talking, Paul, I was thinking there's different formats I've had in mind, and it may be part of this or something else we do. But whether it's one-on-one interviews or we have a few people from a few different fields come in to answer
I'm with
questions,
it.
I think that'd be dope. I was just thinking about my cousin Jay, Jay Rich out in Oakland. He's a comedian and he's a pretty well-known comedian. Shout out to Jay Rich, but also like he's a barber. And since the pandemic, I've been watching everybody pivot and figure out their lanes and all that. And he's started to
Mm-hmm.
merge a little bit what he does in his little video clips with his barbering now. And it's dope because it's actually giving people like insight into how to get started. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? He's introducing them to like the OG at the shop that started the shop when he was 44, but hadn't ever done a haircut before that. You know what I mean? Just to kind of
Mm-hmm.
open my mind up to the fact that like we can do this. You know what I mean? You can build a lane.
Yeah.
But yeah, showing these kids some of these things because as we're talking, I remember like a lot of the questions we asked. I'll say it's, I'd like to believe that it's more like one in five are super engaged and interested in music or writing or hip hop or or getting into that lane. But there's still all the other kids, you know what I mean? And when we send it around the room, we don't keep it limited to hip hop. But like what we hear most often, I'll tell you right now, it's like, I want to be a barber, I want to be a chef, I
I want
want,
to start my own business. I
I
want to
want,
get into real estate. I
yeah,
want to, yeah, so many things.
yep.
Um, yeah, I want to make my own video game. One kid told us he wanted to get to the NBA. And I know the numbers on that, but I'm not going to discourage you from your dream, man. Hoop on,
But
you
just like a hip
know.
hop artist, I'm gonna try to open the world up a little bit and show you all the different paths and lanes to get there. Not that I'm like the
Right,
expert, but I'm
right.
fortunate to be so connected to so many people, you know what I mean? And to see so
Hmm.
many stories of success and to recognize it now. But like,
Yeah,
yeah, we get to show
yeah.
these kids, you know, it's not just being an artist sometimes, it's finding a lane that you can build a career off of. You know what I
Right.
mean? Whether that's through
And
video.
there's a bunch of folks who didn't make it to the league who are now playing overseas. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Play for 10 to 15 years overseas, made good money and whole careers out of it.
Being
There's tremendous amounts of opportunity.
so many, and
Yeah.
and I always try to remember that whenever we present these ideas to the kids, because
Hmm.
you know, just like a young hip hop artist, I ain't gonna say that you ain't gonna skyrocket. We watched Hobo Johnson literally go from one of the seats in juvenile hall in a matter of a year or two to like buying his mom's a house. You know what I mean? And
Anything is possible.
and that's so special, and I'm so proud of him on that level. But like, we get to share that with these kids in juvenile hall just to like open that up. You know what I mean? It's not like you're the next star necessarily, but don't count yourself out either. You put in the work, you set that vision, you set that dream, and and you got support. You know?
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's the big part. Um, but yeah, Rocky, I don't want to continue to
Yeah.
beat a dead horse. I really want people to be able to check out episode one. And then let us know what you think. Hit us up on social media. Hit our guest up. Let them know if you like their answers or responses and want to engage in what he's doing. But let us know what you think of episode one.
Right.
We're totally down to kind of connect with people through social media, through Facebook, Instagram, in the YouTube comments. I'll go back and forth with folks all day. So let's do
Right.
it. And then share it. Share, share, share.
Yes,
Share with
please
your
share.
folks, share with people who you think could potentially fund it. Share it with people who you think would just be interested. Maybe they're college students who you feel like should know about these innovative programs as they're learning about criminal justice and are interested in kind of getting into those types of careers. You know, share it far and wide.
Right. So I'm gonna pull up the video. What do you think we should do? Should I play it? It's a long video, so I think I
I
could.
don't think you have to play the whole thing. But maybe let's play like uh what was the I can't remember. It might have been like the 20-minute mark or the 18 or 19-minute mark. And I think
Hmm.
there was a point, it was like 29 minutes or 30 minutes somewhere in there where Chinna was kind of describing, I think it was the transition from like being in education and some of the stuff that really like changed for him. There's a portion of that conversation within that 10 minutes I thought might be really cool.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that part actually. And if it's the part I'm thinking of, just a disclaimer for everybody. I might actually upload a new version. I forgot. Um, but there's a part in there where I cut it out because he was talking numbers and stuff, right? And I
Yeah,
kind of said
it might have been.
I kind of just said that he breaks down some numbers for a minute because we knew that the kids would be watching, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't and it could lose them. So I think I shortened it right there, and I
That's
might upload
fine.
version, but just a disclaimer. That's why the editing is done the way it is.
All good. All good. Well, we'll play it. And then if you want to see the rest, go to the Auburn Hip Hop Congress YouTube page. Check out the rest of the episode. We'll put that link, in the comments here so people can find it also. But Rocky, I got to hop off and get to this other thing that I got to do for tomorrow. But I appreciate this time, and y'all rock on.
Yeah, appreciate you, Paul. I'm going to put up the link right.
Right.
I'll get the video started, but you have a great rest of your night, brother. And
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I just appreciate all the work and look forward to unveiling this to the world, seeing who tunes in.
Yep, absolutely. All right, y'all. Peace.
Let me put this up. That. All right, y'all, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Auburn Hip Hop. If you guys are watching on Facebook, please share or like it so that others can tune in for the following weeks. We're doing this new thing, just so you guys know, where each week is a different kind of series. So first Thursday, second Thursday, third Thursday, and fourth Thursday will each be something different. This will be second Thursdays. So the hip hop journey, every second Thursday, you guys will be able to tune in to a new program, to a new episode. And then if you guys are interested, stay tuned on the Auburn Hip Hop Congress page for announcements about the other 3 different series that we're dropping. All right. Thank you all. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Always reach out, share. And if you have any questions or you want to get involved, please reach out. I'll leave an email below as well. We'll end with a clip in just a second.
I was suspended in 7th grade. Road that always paved in gold. I couldn't save my soul. Adrenaline like a tidal wave. Might have thrown it all away. Carry back me to stay. Your mama ain't coming home. Don't pick up the phone. It got to set her straight. But I'm 15. Just begun to dream. Life ain't always what it seems.
Hey, you're taking all these classes. You're not doing quite good in some of these classes. What might be the issue? What's going on in your personal life? It was Mr. La Chica. And Mr. La Chica, if you've been to Sac City College, you know he is. He does. He's an amazing person. Anybody who's been to Sac City, anybody that's part of Let's See, anybody, all those folks, they know Mr. La Chica. And so
yeah, can you? Sorry, we shouldn't do abbreviations. So when you say Let's See, like they don't know what it is.
Collaborative, Low End Theory Collaborative, a group of educators who are also hip hop heads that work collectively to push forward positive things for youth and an education system. But they all kind of like went up through that process, and a lot of them are counselors or teachers on the Sacramento Unified. At the CSU. I can't even say abbreviations, can I?
No, it's Sac City. They're all professors, counselors at Sac City and
Sac State and all those type of things. And so one of the cool things about Mr. La Chica is he was basically like asked about my personal life, and he was like, "Hey, what's going on?" I was like, "Hey, I'm working all these jobs." Because I want to save up money, because I want to keep my own spot, this and that. And he was like, hey, you should take some time off from that and see if you can put something in play to where you're take a break. And so the union that was part of UPS allowed you to take some time off for school and still come back and have your job. And so I did that, and through that process, I actually started working for an organization called Sacramento Start program. And during the START program, it was it was a moment where I actually started to see my impact and what it could be. Me being a black guy from a young black man from the south side of the city, and then working with youth, other youth of color from the south side of the city, it just resonated differently. And you know, I had some really tough experiences that helped me to solidify, like, oh, I think that I need to go deeper in this work that I'm doing, and not actually, you know, continue to work at UPS. And so I went deeper into the work, and that would kind of like brought me into youth development. And it was called Uncool.
Spaces to then get into the business world, and you had some business experience and kind of working with the city before you jumped to the school board. So let's rewind to some of that. How'd you get started into business, and what did it take to build your career?
So business. Okay. So I think I got started in business out of necessity. You know, and creativity. I think that one of the craziest things that I ever did was, you know, we started a clothing line first. I remember starting a clothing line, and it was called Uncool, and you know, just me and a guy I knew from me and Levon, and we both worked at Boys and Girls Club of Greater Sacramento. I was a program director. He was the team director of the team coordinated program. And I was like, man, it was really cool to start a clothing line. So we did.
And you were also an artist at that time, right?
Yeah. So I was doing hip hop music. I was director of the youth Boys and Girls Club with the director of programming, and then also then got into doing a clothing line. And so I guess they kind of all fueled each other, but you know, we built that clothing line, and you know, we're getting on the news and we're doing that kind of stuff. Had one of the first pop-up shops, I think one of the first pop-up shops here locally in Sacramento before pop-up shops were a thing. And you know, it was building and it was going really well. And then from that experience, I was like, well, how do we like actually change our communities through like doing business? And I remember I left Boys and Girls Club, and I went through a program with the city of Sacramento called the Planning Academy, and which basically teaches you about planning, city planning, urban planning, and why the city looks the way it does. What are like the permit processes? What are the codes for like coding in areas, and why do certain areas have duplexes on the corner and certain areas don't have duplexes, why that certain parts of the city have sidewalks and why they don't. And so that process opened my eyes to what's possible and why the city that I love actually looks the way it does, right? And so with that, I just started doing one-to-ones because an organizing world, one-to-ones, and having one-to-one conversations and building relationships with people is the best way to move forward or move your dreams forward. And I used to sit down with developers or sit down with people who are in real estate, and I used to ask them, because there are a lot of people in our class were like developers or real estate folks, and I used to ask them like, hey, how do I get into real estate? How do I become a developer? This is what I want to do. I want to do this in the south side of the city. And most people didn't take me too seriously. They would ask me questions like, well, how much money do you have? And I would say, I have nothing. I was like, I can probably scrounge up maybe $500. How do I get started? And most people will look at me and be like, no, man, you have to get your money up first and have some skin in the game, as they would call it. Basically your own money or own resources, showing that you actually have like some type of stake in what's going on. So I didn't have any of that. And I just kept on meeting with people. And one person told me, he was like, hey, look up private placement memorandums, private placements. and then come talk to me again when you look up private placements. I was like, okay, cool. I'll look up private placements, see what happens. Looked up private placements, and I saw that the government has a status for people called accredited investors. Accredited investors have $1 million or more discretionary funds to invest in things. And so you can be qualified as an accredited investor if you had a certain amount of money, and $1 million was the cap of like what you had to have just to play with, right? And those people can actually invest money into companies and what they call high risk companies, and money into private placements. And so I was like, whoa, this is actually a thing. And so I went back to one of the guys that had done some development work previously, and I said, hey, I had no clue that this was a possibility. And I had no clue, like I could be doing something like this. He was like, yeah. And I said, but I looked and it cost $60,000 to actually get all of the legal stuff set up to run this type of business. So I was like, dang, without money, I can't even do this. And then he was like, yes, correct. And I was like, and now I was like, man, that's just, I don't have $60,000. I don't know when I'm gonna get $60,000. And he told me, he was like, hey, don't worry about it. I'll have my lawyers write up the stuff for you, and get what you need. We have the stuff, and so I'll just gift that to you. And he's like, now you just have to figure out where you're gonna get your investors from. And that's actually the harder part, because you have no experience in real estate. I had zero experience in real estate. He said, you have no experience in real estate and you want to do these development projects. That's going to be the hardest part for you. Now that we took this part off of the table for you, which was hard, this part is going to be harder. And so, but here are like the keys. You can at least open the door. And so it was funny from there. I was talking to my brother and Damani, and I was like, hey, this is what we got. We got these paperwork in, like we can start up the business. And we were hyped. Didn't know how we were going to do it. Literally, my brother was talking. He plays music, and he's a musician, and he's teaching a lady keys, piano for her church, and he's been teaching her for like a couple of years now. And he's telling her about this project that we're going to be doing, and she was like, "Oh," and she was asking him questions, and he's like answering her questions, and then she was like, "Well, I work for a firm that handles money for accredited investors, and you know, I would love to talk to you and your brother if you guys have this whole setup. I'm leaving, and I'm going to be taking some of my clients with me to start my own company, and they want to invest in hard assets. Hard assets meaning like real estate property, like something hard assets, like something that's in the ground, doesn't
like
move.
physical buildings, whether it's
Buildings,
like a home or like a business, that kind of thing.
Buildings, stuff like that. So they're interested in hard assets, and so I was like, okay, cool. We met. We let her know what we have, and you know, within 6 months of that, I think our first installment of funds was something like, I think it was something like it was either, I don't remember if it was 100,000 or 500. One of those things. But it was a while ago. But we got money in, right? And it was a moment to be like, wow. Like when we got a check in, our first check in to our company, it was like mind blowing, and we were able to start doing actually real estate projects with actually like no real estate experience, other than we saying like, this is what we want to do. We did do the due diligence of research. We did do the due diligence of learning about what we need to do. We did the due diligence of actually having legal paperwork set up. But all of that was built through relationships. And then the biggest relationship my brother was able to garner, which he didn't even know that would bring us here, kind of took us over that line. And like I said, the stars had to align for those things that happen. But I would also say the stars align for you more often than you would think. And we don't often see that.
because we're in it, but the universe always I guess aspires to give you what you want if you're going after what you want. And
Yeah.
so
And you know, there's a couple different, you know what I mean, like law of attraction type stuff where, you know, when your conversation changes, when you start speaking your intention and you start putting that out into the world, then when people think of you, they think about your intentions and what you're trying to accomplish. And generally speaking, folks want to help other people. So, and especially if you're talking about really positive things, and here, you know, you're getting into real estate, you're looking to buy buildings, and you're looking for investors specifically. So when that's part of your conversation, when folks are like, hey, you know, I like this person, I want to help them out, how do we get them connected? Like it just seemed that, you know, because you were putting that out there, because your brother had that conversation with somebody, it just so happened that, you know, you never know who knows who.
Yes, yes. So that was just a little sneak peek. You guys can check out the full video at youtube.com, Auburn Hip Hop. Please be sure to subscribe and share it if you're feeling it. We got a lot more great interviews and guests to introduce you guys to coming up. So thank you guys for tuning in today. Much love. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.